Eleanor,
Eleanor,
come on in.
come in.
Hi,
Come on.
Eleanor.
Hi,
I'm
Eleanor.
Michael.
I'm Michael.
How are you today?
How
I'm
are you
great.
today?
Thanks for
I'm
asking.
great. Thanks for asking.
Oh, one question.
One question.
Where am I?
Where
Who
am
are
I?
you and what's going
Who
on?
are you and what's going on?
Right. So, you,
Right, so
Eleanor Shellstrop,
you, Eleanor
are
Shellstrop,
dead.
are
Your life on Earth has
Your
ended,
life on
and you are
Earth.
now in the next phase.
Your life on Earth has ended.
Right. Your life on Earth has ended,
Your
and you
life
are
on
now
Earth
in
has
the
ended,
next
and you're
phase of
now
your
in the next
existence in the
phase of your
universe.
existence in the universe.
You are now in the next phase of your existence in the universe.
And you're now in the next phase of your existence in the universe.
You are now, your life on Earth has ended. Right. So,
So,
you,
you,
Eleanor
Eleanor
Shellstrop,
Shellstrop,
are dead.
is
Your
are
life,
dead.
right. So, you,
You,
Eleanor
Eleanor
Shellstrop,
Shellstrop,
are
are
dead.
dead.
Your life
Your
on
life
Earth
on
has
Earth has
ended,
ended,
and you are
and
now
you're
in the
now in
next
the next
phase
phase
of your existence in the universe.
universe.
Cool.
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 I have some questions.
Thought you might.
I have some
How did
questions.
I die?
Thought
I
you
don't
might.
remember.
How
Yes.
did I die?
In
I
cases
don't
of
remember.
traumatic.
Yes, in cases of traumatic or embarrassing deaths.
How did I die?
How did I
I
die?
don't remember.
Yes.
I don't remember.
In
Yes,
cases of
in
traumatic
cases
or
of
embarrassing deaths, we
traumatic or
erase the memory
embarrassing.
to allow for a peaceful transition. Yes. In
In
cases of traumatic or embarrassing deaths, we erase the memory to allow for peaceful transition. Yes. In cases of traumatic or embarrassing deaths, we erase the memory to allow for a peaceful transition. Are you sure you want to hear?
Are you sure want to hear?
All right. So you were in
All
a
right, so
grocery
you
store
were
parking lot.
in a
You dropped
grocery
a
store
bottle of something
parking lot.
called
You dropped a
Lonely Gal
bottle of
Margarita
something
Mix for
called
one.
Lonely
And
Gal
when you bent down to pick
Margarita
it up,
Mix
a
for one.
long column of shot dropped a bottle of something. All right. So you
All
were
right, so
in
you were
a
in a
grocery store
parking lot.
You
You
dropped a
dropped
bottle of something called Lonely Gal Margarita Mix for one.
Mix for one.
And when you bent down to pick it up, dropped a bottle of something called Lonely
Lonely
Gal
Gal
Margarita
Margarita
Mix
Mix
for
for
one.
one.
And when you bent down to pick it up, a
Pick
long
it up.
dropped a bottle of something
And
called
when you bend down,
Lonely Gal Margarita Mix for one. And when
you bent
you
down,
bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts that were being returned to the shopping cart collection area rolled out of control and were being returned. Dropped a bottle of. All right, so you were in a grocery store parking lot. You dropped a bottle of something called Lonely Gal Margarita Mix for one. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long dropped a bottle of something called Lonely Gal Margarita Mix for one. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts were being returned and dropped a bottle. All right, so you were in a grocery store parking lot. You dropped a bottle of something called Lonely Gal Margarita Mix for one. And when you bent down to pick it up, dropped a bottle of something called Lonely Gal Margarita Mix for one. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping dropped a bottle of something called Lonely Gal Margarita Mix for one. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts. And when you bent down to pick it up, and when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shop. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts were being returned to the shop. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts who were being returned to the shopping cart collection area, rolled out of control and were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Rolled out of were being returned to the shopping cart. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts who were being returned to the shopping cart were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Rolled out of control and were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. Rolled out of control. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts who were being returned to the shopping cart collection area. And when you bent down to pick it up, a long column of shopping carts They were being returned to the
Return
shopping
shopping
cart
cart
collection
collection
area,
area.
rolled out of
Lower
control,
down the
and
control,
plowed right into
out,
you.
proud out into.
That's how I died.
All right,
Alright, so you were in a grocery, 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 grocery,
grocery,
grocery, grocery, grocery store. Alright, so you were in a grocery store parking lot. You dropped a bottle of something called Lonely Margarita mix for one, and when you bent down to pick it up, a long con of shopping carts that were being returned to the shopping cart. They're being returned to the shopping cart collection area, lured out of control and plowed right into plowed right into
plowed,
plowed right into plowed right into
rolled,
rolled out of control and plowed right into. Right. So you were in a Right, so you were in a grocery store parking lot. You dropped a bottle of something called Loliga Margarita mix for one, and when you bend down to pick it up, a wrong come of shopping cart that will being returned to the shopping cart collection area, rolled out of control and plowed right into. Mm. Are you sure around here? 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 Here? Are you sure around here?
are you sure you want to hear?
Are you sure around here? Are you sure around here? Are you sure around here?
All right, so you were
Alright,
in
so
a
you were in
grocery
a
store
grocery
parking
store
lot.
parking
You
lot.
dropped a
You
bottle
dropped
of
a
something
bottle of
called
something called
Lonely Gal
Lonely Gal
Margarita Mix
Margarita
for
Mix
one.
for one.
And when you bent down to
And
pick
when
it
you
up,
bent
a
down pick it
long
up,
column
a
of
long
shopping
column of shopping
carts
carts.
who were being
They
returned
were
to the
being
shopping
returned
cart
shopping
collection
cart
area,
cart
rolled out
collection
of
area,
control, and
were out of
plowed
control
right into
and
you.
plowed right out into you.
That's how I died.
No, sorry,
Ugh,
there's more.
that's
You
how
were
I
able to
die.
grab onto the front
Sorry,
of the
there's
column.
more.
Are you sure you want to hear?
Are you
All right,
sure
so
one
you were
here?
in a
Alright, so
grocery
you
store
were in
parking
a
lot.
grocery
You
store parking lot. You
dropped a
dropped
bottle
a
of
bottle
something
of
called
something called
Lonely Gal
Lonely Girl
Margarita Mix for
Margarita
one.
Mix for
And
one.
when you bent down to
And when
pick
you
it
bent
up,
down,
a
pick it
long
up, a
column of
long column of
shopping
shopping
carts
cart.
who were being
They're
returned to
being
the shopping cart
shopping
collection
cart
area,
collection
rolled
area,
out of
lowered
control,
out of
and
control
plowed
and
right into
plowed
you.
right into you. Plowed
That's
right
how
into
I
you.
died.
Ugh, that's how I die.
Are you sure you want to hear?
Are you sure one here? Are you sure one here? Are you sure one here? Are
All
you
right,
sure
so
one
you were
here?
in a
Alright, so
grocery. Are you sure you want to hear?
are you
All
sure
right,
one
so you
here?
were in a grocery
Alright,
store
so
parking
you were
lot.
in a
You
grocery
dropped a
store
bottle of
parking
something
lot. You
called
dropped a
Lonely
bottle of
Gal
something called
Margarita
Lolligan
Mix for
Margarita
one.
some
And
mix
when you
for
bent down
one.
to pick it
And
up,
when you
a
bent down,
long
picked up
column of
a
shopping
round count
carts
of
who
shopping
were being
carts
returned to the shopping cart collection
were
area,
being
rolled out of
returned to the
control,
shopping
and
cart
plowed
collection
right into
area.
you.
Oof.
Rolled out of control, plowed right into you.
Are you sure you want to hear?
Are you sure one here?
All right, so you were
Alright,
in
so
a
you were in
grocery
a
store
grocery
parking
store
lot.
parking
You
lot.
dropped a
You
bottle
dropped
of
a
something
bottle of
called
something called
Lonely Gal
Lonely Girl
Margarita Mix
Margarita
for
Mix
one.
for one.
And when you bent down to
And when you
pick it
bent
up,
down,
a
pick it up,
long
a
column
long
of
column of
shopping
shopping
carts
carts.
who were being
They
returned to
were
the
being
shopping
returned
cart
shopping
collection
cart
area,
collection
rolled
area,
out of
lowered
control,
out
and
control and
plowed right into
plowed
you.
out into
Oof.
you. Oof,
That's how I died.
No, sorry, there's
that's
more.
how I die.
You were
No, sorry, there's more. No, sorry, there's more. No, sorry, there's more. You were able to grab and
able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping cart. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping cart. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping cart. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts, but it's you were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts.
You able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts. You are able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts.
But it's you were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts, but it swept you right out into this.
Swept you right out into the street, but it swept you right out into the street.
It swept you right out into the street. It swept you right out into the street. It swept you right out into the street where you it swept you right out into the street where you were struck and killed by a mobile billboard truck advertising an erectile dysfunction pill called
Dysfunction pill called
engorge, ulate,
ulate.
An erectile dysfunction pill called engorgulate.
Engorgulate.
Oof. That's how I died.
No, sorry,
there's more.
You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts, but it swept you right out into the street where you were struck.
Swept you right out into
it swept you right out into the street. It swept you right out into the street. It swept you right out into the street. It swept you right out into the street where you it swept you right out into the street. It swept you right out into the street.
설마 이렇게 끝났다가
You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts, but it swept you right out into the street where you were struck and killed.
Oof. That's how I died.
No, sorry,
there's more.
You were able to grab onto the front of the column of shopping carts, but it swept you right out into the street where you were struck and killed by a mobile billboard truck advertising an erectile dysfunction pill called engorgulate. Funnily enough, the first rolled up.
Oof.
That's
how I died.
No,
there's more.
You were able to grab on the front of the common shopping cart, but it swept you right out. It swept you right out into the. It swept you right. It swept you right out into the street.
But it swept you right into the street.
It swept you right out into the street. It swept you right out into the street. It swept you right out into the street.
But it swept you right out into the street.
It swept you right out into the street.
Into the street. Out into the street. But it swept you right out into the street.
It swept you right out into the street where you were struck. You were able to grab onto the front of the common shopping cart, but it swept you right out into the street. But it swept you right out into the street where you were. It swept you right out into the street where you were struck. It swept you right out into the street where you. It swept you right out into the street.
But it.
You were able to grab onto the front of the
common shopping cart, but it swept right out into the street
where you were struck and killed by a mobile. It swept you right out into the street where you were struck. It swept
swept
you right out
into
into
the
the
street
street where you were
where you
struck
struck
and killed by a
where you were
it swept you right out
right
into
into
the
the
street
street
where you were struck and
and
killed
killed.
by where you were able to grab onto
Grab
the
the
front of
from the
the
common
shopping
shopping
carts,
cart,
but
but
it
it
swept you
swept
right
right
out
out
into
into
the
the
street
street
where you were struck
struck
and killed by a
by a
mobile
mobile
billboard truck
advertising
an erectile
an
dysfunction
erectile
pill called
dysfunction pill
Engorgulate.
called
An erectile dysfunction pill called
dysfunction pill
Engorgulate.
called
An
an
erectile
erectile
dysfunction pill
Erectile.
electile
Erectile.
electile
Erectile.
by a
a
mobile
mobile
billboard truck advertising an erectile dysfunction pill called Engorgulate. Funnily enough, an erectile dysfunction pill called Engorgulate. An erectile dysfunction pill called Engorgulate. Funnily, and by a mobile billboard truck advertising an erectile dysfunction pill called Engorgulate. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive, an erectile dysfunction pill called Engorgulate. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Okay, that's
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. An erectile. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend of yours.
okay. That's
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend of yours.
okay. That's
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend of yours.
okay.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Okay. That's
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend.
okay.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Okay.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to
EMT
arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Okay.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend of yours.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive is an ex-boyfriend
of yours.
Roll are being returned. And
Oof. That's how I
That's how I
died.
died.
sorry,
there's more. No, sorry, there's more. No, sorry, there's more.
you were able
You
to
were
grab
in
onto
the
the front of the
common shopping cart, but it swept right into your street.
where you it
But
swept
it
you
swept
right out into the street
swept
where
you.
you was it
But
swept
it
you
swept you
right out into the street where you were struck and killed by a
Where you
mobile
were struck.
where you were struck and
Where
killed
you were
by
struck
a
and
where you were
killed.
struck and killed.
Oof. That's how I died.
No, sorry.
No, sorry, there's more.
You were able
You
to
were
grab onto the
able
front
to
of the
from the
common
common shopping
carts,
cart,
but
but
it
it
swept you right out into the street where you were struck and killed by a mobile billboard truck advertising an erectile dysfunction pill called
engorgulate.
Funnily enough, the first
Funnily
EMT
enough,
to
the
arrive
first
was an
EMT
ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough,
Funnily
the
enough,
first
the first
EMT to
EMT
arrive was an
alive was his
ex-boyfriend.
boyfriend.
Okay.
was-
Funnily,
That's how I
That's how I
died.
died.
sorry,
No,
there's
sorry,
more.
there's more.
You were able to grab onto the front of the
from
cart
the
of
common
shopping
shopping
carts, but
cart,
it swept you right out into the street, where you were struck and killed by a mobile billboard truck advertising an erectile dysfunction
an
pill called
erectile
engorgulate.
dysfunction called
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend. An erectile dysfunction pill called engorgulate.
engorgulate.
And about you.
That's how I died.
No, sorry.
No,
there's
sorry,
more.
there's more.
You were able to grab onto the front of the common shopping
cart,
cart, but
but
it swept you right out
into
into the street,
the
where you were
street.
struck and killed
Where you
by
were struck
a
and
mobile
killed
billboard
by
truck
a mobile
advertising
billboard truck
an erectile
advertising an
dysfunction pill
erectile
called
dysfunction pill
engorgulate.
called
Funnily
engorgulate.
enough, the first
Funnily
EMT
enough,
to
the
arrive
first
was an
EMT to arrive
ex-boyfriend.
was an
Okay, that's.
ex-boyfriend of yours.
I get it. Thank you.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
So who was right?
Who
I mean,
was
about-
right? 이거
Or being
설마
returned to the shopping cart collection area, rolled out of control and plowed right
fought
in.
out into you? Oh,
That's how I
that's
died.
how I
No,
died.
sorry,
No,
there's
sorry,
more.
there's more.
You were able to grab onto the front of the common shopping cart, but it swept you right out into the street, where you were struck and killed by a mobile billboard truck advertising
an
erectile
dysfunction pill called engorgulate.
Funnily enough, the first
Funnily
EMT to
enough, the
arrive was an
first EMT to
ex-boyfriend.
arrive was
Okay.
Funnily enough, the
Funnily
first
enough,
EMT to arrive.
first EMT, the first. Funnily enough, the first EMT.
Funnily enough, the
Funnily
first
enough, the
EMT
first
to
EMT
arrive
to
was an
arrive
ex-boyfriend.
was an EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend. Arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours. Arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to
The
arrive
EMT
was
to
an
arrive was an
ex-boyfriend.
boyfriend of yours.
Funnily enough, the
Funnily
first
enough, the
EMT
first
to arrive
EMT
was
to
an
arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
an ex-boyfriend. Arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Funnily enough,
Funnily
the
enough,
first
the
EMT
first
to
EMT
arrive was an
was
ex-boyfriend.
boyfriends.
Funnily enough, the
Funnily
first
enough,
EMT
first
to
EMT
arrive was an
was
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriends.
Funnily enough, the first
Yeah,
EMT
first
to
EMT
arrive was
to
an
arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
boyfriends.
Funnily enough, the
Funnily
first
enough,
EMT
first
to arrive was
EMT
an
to arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
boyfriends. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of
Funnily enough,
yours.
the first
No,
EMT
first
to arrive was an ex.
to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of
Funnily
yours.
enough, the first
Enough,
EMT
first
to
EMT
arrive was an
was
ex-boyfriend. Funnily enough, the first EMT
First
to
EMT
arrive was an
was
ex-boyfriend.
boyfriend.
Funnily enough, the first EMT
Yes,
to
EMT
arrive was
to
an
arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend of
Okay.
yours.
Funnily enough, the
Funnily
first
enough,
EMT to arrive was an
EMT arrived was
ex-boyfriend.
Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Funnily enough, the
Funnily
first
enough,
EMT
the first
to arrive
EMT
was
to
an
arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend
Okay,
of
that's.
Funnily enough, the first
No,
EMT
first
to
EMT
arrive was an
arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend
Okay.
of yours.
Funnily enough, the first
No,
EMT
first
to arrive
EMT
was an
arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend.
Okay, that's.
Funnily enough, the
Funnily
first
enough,
EMT to
first
arrive
EMT
was an
arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend
Okay.
of yours.
Funnily enough, the
Fair
first
enough,
EMT
first
to
EMT
arrive was an
arrive was
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend of yours.
Okay, that's. I get
Okay.
it. Thank you.
That's I get it. Thank you. Okay, this I get it. Thank you.
So who was right?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay, that's. I get it. Thank you.
Sorry.
So who was right?
So is right.
So who was right?
So who was right? So who was right?
So who was
So
right?
who was right?
I mean about.
I mean,
all of
I mean
this.
about
Well, let's see.
all of this.
I mean about
I mean about
all of this.
all of
Well, let's
this.
see. Hindus,
Well, let's see. Well, let's see. Hindus,
Well, let's see. Hindus are a little bit right.
a little bit right. I
I
mean,
mean about all of this.
Well, let's see.
I
about
mean about
all of this.
all of this.
All of
Well,
this.
let's see. Hindus
Well, let's see.
are a little bit
Hindus,
right.
a little bit, right. Well, let's see. Hindus, a little bit right.
I mean about all of this.
Well, let's see. Hindus
Well, let's see.
are a little bit
Hindus,
right. Muslims
a little bit right. Muslims,
Jews,
a
Christians,
little bit.
Buddhists.
Jews,
Every
Christians,
religion guessed about
Buddhists.
5%.
Every religion guessed about 5%. 5%.
religion,
Religion. Religion. Every religion guesses about.
Every religion
Every
guessed
religion
about
guesses
5%.
about 5%.
Every religion guessed about
guesses about
5%.
5%.
Except for Doug Forsett.
Except for
Except for Doug Forsett.
except for Doug Forsett.
Except for Doug
Except
Forsett.
for
Except for Doug Forsett.
except
Except for Doug Forsett. Except for Doug Forsett.
except for
except,
Except for
For.
Doug Forsett.
except for
Except for Doug Forsett.
except for Doug Forsett.
Except for Doug Forsett. Except for
Except
Doug
for
Forsett.
Doug Forsett.
Except for Doug
Except for
Forsett.
Doug Forsett.
Who's Doug Forsett?
Well, Doug was
Who's
a
Doug
stoner.
Forsett? Where Doug was
Doug was
where
a
Doug was a
stoner kid who
stoner
lived in
kid
Calgary.
was
Doug was a
Doug was a stoner
stoner,
stoner.
Doug was
Doug was
a
a
stoner
a
kid who lived in
stoner kid
Calgary during the
lived in
1970s. One night,
Calgary,
Calgary during the
Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s.
1970s.
Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was
Doug
a
was a
Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s.
during the
Doug was
1970s.
a stoner kid who lived in
kid who
Calgary
lived in
during the
Calgary during the 1970s. Calgary during the 1970s.
Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s.
during the 1970s.
Doug was a
Well, Doug was Doug was Doug was Doug was a Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s.
except for Doug Forsett.
Except for Doug Forsett.
Except for
Who's
Doug
Doug?
Forsett.
Who's Doug Forsett?
Well, Doug,
Who's Doug Forsett? Who's Doug Forsett?
Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s.
1970s.
Doug was a stoner kid who lived. Doug was a stoner kid who lived in Calgary during the 1970s. One night he got really high on mushrooms.
One night he got
One
really
night
high.
he got
One night he got
really high on mushrooms. And his best friend Randy said, "Hey, what do you think happens after we
what do you
die?
think?
Hey, what do you
Hey,
think
what do you
happens
think
after we
happened?
die?
Hey, what do you think?
Hey, what do you
Hey,
think
what do you
happens
think
after we
happens?
die? Hey, what do you think
What do you
happens
think?
after we
What
die?
do you think?
Hey, what do you
Hey,
think
what do you
happens?
think? What do you think?
Hey, what do you
Hey,
think
what do you
happens
think
after we
happens
die?
after we die? Happens after
Hey,
we
what do you think
die.
happens after we die? Hey, what do you think
Hey, what do you
happens
think
after we
happens
die?
when we die?
Hey, what do you
Hey,
think
what do you
happens
think
after we
happens
die?
when we die?
When do you
Hey,
think
what do you
happens
think
after we
happens when
die?
we
And
die? After we die.
hey, what do you think
Hey, what do you
happens
think
after we
happens when
die?
we
And
die?
Doug just
And Doug
launched into this
just
long
launched
monologue
into
where he
this
got like
long
90 and
monologue.
Doug just launched into this long
And Doug
and
just launched
Doug just launched into this
into
long
this
monologue.
long monologue.
Launched.
Launched. Doug just launched.
And Doug just
Doug
launched
just
into this
launched
long
into this
monologue
long.
where he got and Doug just launched
just
into this
run.
long. Hey, what do you think happens after we die? And Doug just
Doug
launched
just
into this
launched
long
into this
monologue
long
where he got like
monologue.
92%
Will
correct. Where he got like 92% correct. Where he got like 92%
where he got nine
where he got like 90
where he got like
where he got like 92%
92%
correct.
correct.
Where he got like where he got like 92% correct.
Where he got
Where he
where
got
he
like
got like
92%
92%
correct.
correct.
Where he got like
Where he got
92% correct.
92% correct.
Where he got like
Where he got like
92% correct.
92% correct.
We couldn't believe what we were hearing. We couldn't believe what we were hearing.
I mean,
We couldn't believe what we
we
were
can't
hearing. That's it.
believe it, but
We couldn't
we
believe what
can't
we were
believe
hearing.
what
That's him. We
we
couldn't
we
believe what
can't
we were
believe
hearing.
what we're hearing. I mean, we can't believe what we were hearing. We were hearing. I mean, we can't believe what we were hearing.
We couldn't
We
believe what
can't
we were
believe
hearing.
we were hearing. We were hearing.
We couldn't
We
believe what
can't
we were
believe
hearing.
what we're
That's him,
hearing.
actually. We couldn't
We
believe what
can't
we were
believe
hearing.
we can't believe
We couldn't believe what we were
believe what
hearing.
we were
That's him.
hearing.
That's it. We couldn't
We
believe
can't
what we were
believe we were
hearing. That's him.
hearing.
That's it. We couldn't
We
believe
can't
what we were
believe we
hearing.
were
That's him,
hearing.
actually, right up there.
That's him actually, right up there.
He's
That's
pretty
him.
famous. That's him, actually, right up there.
That's him actually, right up there.
He's pretty famous around here.
He's famous. He's pretty famous right now, right around here.
He's pretty famous around here.
He's pretty famous around here. He's pretty famous around here.
He's pretty famous
Pretty
around here.
famous around here. Around here.
He's pretty famous
Pretty
around here.
famous around here. Around here.
He's pretty
He's
famous
pretty
around here.
famous around here.
He's pretty
He's
famous
pretty
around here.
famous around here.
He's pretty
He's
famous
pretty
around here.
famous around here.
I'm very lucky to have that. Very lucky to have that.
I'm very lucky to
Very
have
lucky
that.
to have that. He's pretty famous around here.
Here.
I'm very lucky to have that.
I'm very lucky to have that.
Very lucky to
I'm
have that.
very,
Very
I'm
lucky to
very
have
lucky
that.
to have that.
Very
I'm
lucky to have
very
that.
lucky to have that.
Very
I'm
lucky to have
very lucky to have
So
that. Have that.
maybe my
So
biggest question.
maybe my biggest question. 여기까지.